We're going to start out with the year's winners. We have a winner of the year and we have a runner-up of the year. But our runner-up for winner of the year is last year's loser of the year, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Runner-up for winner of the year.
American politics can change overnight.
Big year for Donald Trump. Really turned it around. He came in weak, came in off of a disappointing midterm results because he ended up backing a rogues gallery of misfits and morons who couldn't even beat the likes of John Fetterman. Okay? I mean, that's who he picked last year to run for Senate, to run for governor. He endorsed a huge slate of losers, came out of that with his stock price way down.
It was the crudité campaign.
It was the crudité campaign. He picked the crudité guy in 2022, really blew up in his face. All his candidates flopped. His stock price was way down for 2024 because of those disappointing midterm results as a result of him having injected himself unnecessarily into the race. His stock price was down. DeSantis' price was up, but he turned it around despite being investigated and prosecuted, in a million different trials coming up. He is far and away the prohibitive frontrunner for the GOP nomination. And if the election were held today, he would almost certainly be president. So you got to give an honorable mention for winner of the year to Donald Trump. Do you not, Russell?
That's life. That's what all the people say. Yeah, man, that's like his theme song. This guy, he was a puppet, a pirate, a poet, a pawn, and a king.
That's right.
And he came back. He came back strong. Unfortunately, they got like 6 deep state pros that are not going to let him be the president. We'll get into that in predictions. But hey, if a free and fair and unencumbered election would be held against all odds, this Rodney Dangerfield, Borscht Belt, quasi-fascist, but, more looking to do, Ralph Cramden, like revolution a la Cramden kind of fascism thing, he would win. He would win. No question about it. My longtime prediction, which again we will get into, is they're just not going to let it happen. They won't even let that guy in the White House on a group tour.
But that's 2024. We close out 2023 with his numbers very good. Very
and
good
hey,
numbers.
Man, hey, look, I mean, Trump, the fact that he was able to come back like this, because let's remember why he lost. As I've said many times, he did everything but climb up on the Oval Office desk on camera and wipe his ass with an N95 mask.
Right.
And the fact that he's been able to come back in such a way that if the election were held today, he would probably win in the kind of landslide we haven't seen since Reagan, like not to that point. But, we're used to these very, very close elections. I don't think it would be close if they held it now and he were allowed to compete in every state.
No, I mean, popular vote would be closer than the Reagan votes, but electoral college wise, I mean, he's winning almost every single swing state.
Right. Yeah, it would be this insane sea of red if you held that election today. That is quite a remarkable accomplishment. Give the devil his due. That is an amazing comeback, and that makes him runner-up for winner of the year, without a doubt.
So, despite Donald Trump's impressive bounce back in 2023, he is not the winner of the year. We thought the winner of the year has to go to the emergent BRICS alliance. There they are, leaders of all the BRICS nations. On the right there is Vladimir Putin's stand-in, since he's wanted by the ICC for war crimes, so he could not actually go to the BRICS summit. But there you have it. Brazil, China, South Africa, India, and Russia. There's no doubt Russia is winning World War III. Their GDP, the collective GDP of the BRICS nations, overtook that of the G7. They have added several countries. They've added Ethiopia. They've added Iran. They've added Saudi Arabia. They've added the United Arab Emirates. Those are all set to join tomorrow, by the way, New Year's Day. And Argentina, they added Argentina and then lost it because Argentina voted for the anti-establishment renegade Javier Milei, who said, no, we're not joining BRICS. We're actually dollarizing, backing the United States, backing Ukraine, and backing Israel. That anti-establishment man of the people, Javier Milei down there. So they had Argentina and lost it, but still just a horrible year for the United States, for NATO and the G7. And this emergent alliance not only took shape, but has grown in influence and legitimacy tremendously at the expense of the United States and the West and NATO. Of course, there was going to be a multipolar world emerging from the debacle that's been Biden's first term, and it's here. And I think they are far and away the ones who really can claim victory in 2023.
Well, this has been brewing for a long time. You know, I talk about this on tours. In fact, the tour I gave today for the last time. The first time I went to Europe, I was 19, and fascination and affection for America was everywhere. Like there were posters of the Grease soundtrack. It was playing in all the stores I was going to. Grease had been in the movies like 20 years before, and they were still playing this. Like that was their vision of America, right? Kids in blue jeans and hot rods, and you know, they really, really worship that. And I went this time, I mean, or the last few times I went there. I mean, there's none of that. There's none of that, affection for America, and that's in the West.
Right.
That's among our supposed allies. One of the most recurring themes in Frank Herbert's Dune series, it's a refrain that comes up throughout the series: the predator strengthens the prey. We have preyed on these people for so long that we strengthen them. We strengthen their tactics. We strengthen their alliances. And they are working up a legitimate challenge to Western hegemony, and the West has no real moral center or no story really about itself to rally its people to its defense to meet this challenge, whereas they do. And in the end, a lot of this kind of conflict is decided by morale and belief, and they have it and we do not.
All right, we got a few losers of the year, and I'm going to toss to Russell since this has been his beat. This is in line with his prediction, but a runner-up, certainly for loser of the year, Disney CEO Bob Iger.
Okay, so Bob Iger hands off the reins of Disney, and then whacks his successor at an Elton John concert. I can't remember his name now. He was also Bob. What was he? Tell me in the chat. You guys will remember. So whacks him at an Elton John concert on a Sunday night in the middle of the night. Comes back as the galloping.
Him. Didn't actually whack him.
Didn't literally.
Sounds like
him.
He did it in the middle of the night. Yeah. Shit canned him.
They found him mysteriously in a motel room in New Jersey on the side of the highway
in a goofy costume.
So he and he had been undermining him the whole time that he had that role. And he gallops in. He's going to be the white knight, and in spite of the fact that a lot of the problems Disney is having are a result of the policies that Bob Iger set in motion. They have lost approximately $1 billion at the box office this year. They're pulling way back on production now for next year. My prediction is they're going to wind up having to cancel. Bob Chapek, thank you. I knew our folks would know. They are pulling way back on production for next year. My prediction, this isn't in the predictions category. I didn't want to keep doing Disney every year. But I think they're going to end up having to cancel a lot of their slate because now they built everything around the superhero genre and nobody wants to see it anymore. They torched Star Wars so bad that people have lost interest in it. They can't get anybody to watch anything they produce under the brand anymore. And they've even kind of lit Pixar on fire. So, it's looking like they're going to have to sell off some of their parts, particularly because their contract forces them to buy out Hulu, which is going to cost them billions of dollars. And with the kinds of losses that they're taking, it looks like they might have to sell off some parts. So Bob Iger, I would think this is very much like how the Clintons felt after they decided to run Hillary for president. That cost them the Clinton Foundation. That cost them their grift. It probably didn't look like such a good idea in retrospect. I think Bob Iger, he thought, I'm going to come in and save Disney. And he's probably feeling like he should have let Bob Chapek take the hits, because to be fair, the rot was so deep already by the time he came back in, again, due to decisions that he made. But even if Chapek had stayed, you'd probably be in the same place. It's hard to see how you would have avoided hitting this iceberg at that point.
All right, there is one more loser of the year runner-up, and that is, of course, Florida governor turned presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, who came into the year with a huge opportunity and closes out the year having squandered it. Now, Russell is still of the opinion that given certain deep state interventions into taking Trump off ballots and all that kind of chicanery, DeSantis still has a chance in Russell's mind to come out on top through a less than democratic process. But there's no doubt, as the clock runs out on 2023, this guy came in with a huge opportunity and was not able to do anything with it, of his own making, at least.
Sure. I think, again, to be fair, it's like if you ever saw Natural Born Killers, where they're interviewing Mickey about ratings, and they say, oh, yeah, you beat this one, And he goes, what about Manson? He goes, Manson beat you. He goes, yeah, it's hard to beat the king. I mean, he's running against Trump, man. It's hard to beat the king. So it's hard. I don't know what he could have done differently that really would have put him in contention against Trump. As I mentioned the other day, I underestimated Trump's strength, but now we see, no, man. I mean, that is broad and it is deep, and as long as he's running, nobody can really touch him. So I don't know. It's not like he messed up. It's not. Well, I mean,
he didn't broaden his message.
Anti-gay ad.
Well, the anti-gay ad, the attacking Trump for being too gay friendly, and also he didn't broaden his message. We said at the beginning of the year he's going to have to broaden his message beyond the war on woke, and he never did. He never came up with a critique of Ukraine that made any sense whatsoever. He doesn't have any answer on Roe. In fact, he fucked himself on the abortion thing by passing that 6-week ban. That really hurt. Because he needed to moderate really on that issue, not double down. So that hurt him. So he did fail to broaden his message, and he made a couple of very, very bad calls.
I would not consider it outside the realm of possibility, because it's not. I believe there is a political calculus there. I think he said, I'm just going to double down on abortion to try to win the evangelicals in Iowa to have an upset, because even if I don't beat Trump, if I overperform, that becomes the narrative going into New Hampshire. I think there's a method to his madness. And from what I understand, strategically, he does have a pretty impressive ground game. The question is really, does he have the funding to ride it out and wait for some kind of deep state intervention or, legal court, Supreme Court ruling kind of intervention to stay in that long? Or does this wind up dragging out and getting really decided at the Republican convention?
Yeah, I mean, that may have been a strategic decision in terms of going for the Christian right, hardline evangelicals in Iowa. But then again, that came at a big cost, because his overall pitch is that he can win, that he can beat Biden. And in order to really make that pitch make sense, he had to moderate on that issue, not double down, because not only is he losing in the Republican primary polls, but of all of the, formidable GOP candidates against Biden, he's polling worst. Nikki Haley's beating Biden by the most, Trump by the second most, and DeSantis is struggling to even top Biden in general election polling. So, he made a lot of bad calls, and that's why he is definitely runner-up for loser of the year. But, of course, the guy who lost World War III is loser of the year. And there is a bit of an asterisk, because we have to give it to Volodymyr Zelensky, since Ukraine is the technical loser of this war. But he was really set up to fail by NATO and the West. And so, I mean, his defeat is really the defeat of Joe Biden and of NATO, because he never had a chance to win. And so while he is technically the loser of the year, really, that has a little bit of an asterisk, because underneath it are the forces, both political and economic, that forced this war on this country that could never in a million years actually triumph.
Right. Well, and he didn't have the wisdom, integrity, or backbone to stand up against the Western powers that were clearly using his country and the lives of his countrymen and women as a pawn in a game of Risk that they really had no stake in. He did just allow
his people to be run through a meat grinder for the West. That's true.
Anyone looking at the circumstance, anyone knowing the history would understand. Russia, big country. Ukraine, little country. You can't win a war of attrition. It's impossible. It doesn't matter how many weapons they give you. We're at least 10 to 20 years away from the T-5000, the Terminator, going out on the battlefield. So you need people to run those weapons. You need people to use those weapons. And as we can see, I even saw, in the corporate media, a headline the other day that the average age of the people at the front now is in their 40s. And they quoted someone saying, I physically can't do this.
Right. Yeah, no, it's just, it's horrible. But definitely foreseeable on the part of Ukraine. There was definitely, that you could see that a mile away. That's why we said from the outset there was a peace deal on the table from day one that should have been agreed to on day one. And it wasn't. And the tragic loss is the people of Ukraine who were fed into a meat grinder for no reason, for something that could have been and should have been obviously avoided before it even started.
All right. And according to reports, Russia was ready to come to a settlement early on, and then Boris Johnson went to Ukraine. Told them we weren't going to approve that. I don't know where that fits into nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, but apparently they were told to keep fighting, and here we are.
Please clap.